Hello and welcome back to the Rams Talk podcast. You join us after Saturday's defeat away to Middlesbrough. It feels like Groundhog Day to me. I feel like I'm watching the same game every weekend, unfortunately. But I'm joined here now with Callum and Vic to discuss all things Derby after this weekend of football. So, Callum, how are you?
I'm all right, mate. It's been a while since I've done a Sunday. I mean, it's good reason actually. I don't really want to talk about Derby. Just get into depressive mood. So now I'm all right.
You've been enjoying your weekends, and I fully understand that. And Vic, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Same old story in it, really. What more is there to say other than the newfound love for WWE with Callum and the boys now? It's been one of those weekends again.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Anything to take our mind off Derby at the minute, and reading some of the early comments coming in through, I think a lot of the fan base is in agreement. It's a pretty tough watch. Maybe not John Eustace's fault either. Probably not John Eustace's fault at all. Still early doors, and I think a lot of fans are agreeing that maybe we're facing the prospect of League One again next season. It's 12 games without a win. I think the last one was the win against West Brom at Pride Park back in 2024. But no, let's talk about yesterday's performance. And obviously, the 1-0 loss to Middlesbrough. Obviously, that goal coming late on the last 10 minutes, an individual error from Caden Jackson. But there was individual errors all over the pitch, really. So I think it's harsh to single him out for that. But I thought defensively we looked okay. I know we conceded 18 shots and about 6 on target, but I thought none of them were really one-on-ones, bar one in the first half. I thought we defended quite well. I think the main problem was going forward. We seemed either just to be lumping it forward to no one. Half the time we lumped it to the opposite end of the pitch where Yates was, or we just looked quite toothless going forward, if I'm being honest, and void of a little bit of quality. But Callum, how did it feel for you? Did it feel like a same old story, or is there some positives we can try and take from that performance?
I mean, going in without conceding at half time is a positive. You've got to take 45 minutes as we go. That's probably the best we're going to get. I think, anyone who travelled, you included, Adam, it's not much of a watch from a neutral. We're supposed to be entertained, and I mean, don't get me wrong. At this point, it is all about results, and for us as a fan base, we want to stay up, but there just seems no clear option to be able to do that. I think at the end of the day I've watched that when I saw the first couple of minutes, because obviously I couldn't watch it or anything like that. So I saw the first stat and we had the first shot, and I was just like, oh my God, have we changed? And then when I actually watched the game back, I was like, right, oh okay, nothing really changed in terms of the way we played or anything like that. Yeah, I don't think there's nothing against Eustace at all. I don't think anything that he could have done with this set of players would have changed the outcome on what's probably going to happen. Obviously, we all hope it doesn't, and we do hope he finds some miracle. And we'll probably talk about maybe some nuggets of light that may help with that. But yeah, I mean, away games this year have been woeful to watch on the whole. I think every time we go away, there's not been much of an outlet or much of something to dance about. And the confidence is just still not there going forward. I mean, defensively, Eustace is making us more solid. And we talked about it in the chat about whether we actually looked any worse or better under Warne. And I think the jury's out on that. And I think that's nothing against Eustace and kind of comparing the coaching acumen of either of them. But I think the players are just what they are. And that's it, really.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think you touch upon the confidence of the players. I think yesterday, I think the fans had accepted that we're probably facing relegation, but it felt a little bit disappointing that I think the players almost felt like it yesterday, in my opinion, when I'm watching them play. I think, can't question their effort, but I think the passion, for me, I would like to see a little bit more, if I'm being honest. I think the fans were quite vocal in the second half, some good support, but I think just a little bit more passion from the players, I think, because I think shoulders have dropped, heads have dropped, really, if I'm being honest, over the last 2 or 3 games. I think it's becoming harder and harder to have that belief that we can score a couple of goals, we can win the game, we can look like a championship side. I think yeah, I think heads are going a little bit, and that's obviously not down to John Eustace. It's down to the season we've had and the performances that we're putting in and the lack of quality that we're showing up against sides. But Vic, I'll go to you on this one. We mentioned it there. Quite a few individual errors in that Boro game. And I mentioned maybe the players' heads have dropped, shoulders have gone. What do you think about it? Do you think the players are low on morale and that's led to more mistakes being made? Obviously, Jackson makes the mistake for the goal. I'm not sure who he's passing it to in that position. But for me, we did it multiple times throughout that first and second half. So what do you make of it? Do you think it's going to be a tough one going into the remaining games, 11 that we've got to go, with probably the prospect of being bottom of the league and staying there for the remainder of it?
Yeah, I think if we look back to yesterday's game, I think it's probably a mixture of low morale, but also not enough quality. The problem I think we've had all season is the fact that when you look at the squad and you look at in terms of what you deem as championship quality, there just doesn't seem to be much there. We've probably got little snippets here and there with maybe like a Langas, or you look at players like Kane Wilson who are quite exciting, but overall the squad itself it's not championship quality, and I think we sort of deserve to be where we are. I think the problem is even no matter who was at the helm, whether it was Paul Warne or John, I think with John Eustace, I think he's been dealt an unfair hand because I just think the players can't sort of adapt to what he's trying to do. Me and Callum have had the opportunity of seeing training, and you can see that what they're trying to do in training is very different to what they're trying to do on a match day. And I think the players are sort of so used to playing warm ball, I think they just can't think of any other way to play. And I think this is why we're losing games 1-0. We're just really struggling to score a goal, struggling to sort of just be more forward thinking. I think whatever sort of forward thinking play we had at the start of the season has been sort of just sapped out of the team, and unfortunately the quality just isn't there anymore. Whether it was there to begin with is another question, but it's just a shame to see that we're in this predicament now. But at the same time, I think it's just you deserve to be where you are, and if we're bottom of the table, we're bottom of the table for a reason. It's because the quality is just not there. Hopefully we can see a clean slate next season, but just depends on what division we're in. I'm not very hopeful at the minute, but like I said on Radio Derby the other day, until the fat lady sings, it ain't over. So we've got to keep believing that there's a slight chance we might stay up, but the games are running out thick and fast, and we've got to do something.
And I haven't sung yet.
That's what I said on Friday, wasn't it?
I think I agree with you there about the games coming quick and fast, and also I think it's probably right in John Eustace not to change things too drastically. I think everybody expects that sort of new manager bounce, but I think all Derby fans looked at our team and thought, oh, it's going to be hard to get a bounce out of them players, unfortunately. And I think if you change something so drastically and it doesn't work, then you've not really got any games to bed it in and see an improvement, especially with, I think we've got 11 to go now. And talking about a bit of a positive point, Callum, you mentioned it in the chat. Kane Wilson's meant to be returning this next week, which will be massive for us in that game coming up on Saturday against Blackburn. How big of a return will he be, and would you put him straight into the team straight away?
Yeah, I mean, as Vic alluded to, we were lucky enough to go down last week to Moor Farm, and he was there. He was. I think he came out from doing some gym work or something, but he came and watched the training session on the sidelines, and he was hopeful. He was back and said, like I said, he's going to be back next week, and I think he is going to be massive in any sort of push we're going to do going towards the end of the season, because he's been the only player, in my opinion, in the last 12 months, probably even longer than that, that's going to be any forward thinking on the wing, and he's done that usually from the right wing back. Obviously, when we played the back three, I would put him in the front three and put him on the wing and say, just go and see if you can create something on that right hand side, because I just think that Caden Jackson is just next to useless, and I think that I think Eustace is what he's trying to do, and from what we saw from the training session was that he's trying to get the creative players on the wing, because ultimately you're not going to coach out what Warne's done to this team in 10 or so weeks, you're going to have to work with what he's done. And what he's done is basically tell the lads what plan A is, get it out wide as quick as you can. And then, as you say, try and get it in the box. And he's almost adapting that. He's trying to get the CDMs or the pivots to try and use the ball a little bit more and try and go through that 10. I mean, Harness couldn't really hold up anything on Saturday, but it is still trying to get out to the wing, but he's trying to put the more creative players out there. I mean, Thompson was out there in the training session. Kenzo was out there in the training session. I presume Wilson will be out there. I think anyone with a mild amount of creativity, Eustace wants them out there to try and do something, even if they do come inside and do and cause damage. But yeah, I think coming back to it on the whole, I think if we're going to do anything, Wilson is going to be massive. But the trouble is, he's been out for a number of weeks. He's not going to come back straight away into the starting 11 at least, or if he is, he's going to be without a lot of game time, so he's going to be raw. So we'll just have to bear with him. But the trouble is that we haven't got the games to give him that grace. So he's going to be key for the fans and any hope that we're going to have.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, isn't it? Because like we say, we've not got that many games remaining, really, when we look at it, and you kind of don't want to risk players getting another injury or not being completely match fit. But like you say, we've not really got the time to give them that. They've got to go in, they've got to do a job for me straight away. Anybody who gets played in that first 11 or comes off the bench, you're there to do a job and try and score goals. And at the end of the day, we need wins, not draws as well. Coming into this final run-in with us being a couple of points adrift. And Chris E's asked it in the comments, what do you think about the team selection? I think that's definitely a good point to move on. Obviously, John Eustace made a couple of changes, some big ones as well. He brought Tom Barkhuizen into the fold, starting him. We know he's favoured bringing Barkhuizen off the bench in recent weeks. I didn't think Barkhuizen had the best of games, but maybe that's down to a lack of match sharpness, and he's not really got any momentum going into starting in the starting 11. We saw the back four, obviously, with Craig Forsyth coming in due to a couple of injuries, but we did see Phillips on the bench. And then also the debut, the first start given to Harrison Armstrong. I thought he actually looked one of our brightest sparks. But Vic, do you agree with the switch up in team selection, maybe just to keep things fresh and try something new and in our hope for some points and goals?
I think it's quite baffling when we saw the initial sort of team sheet. I looked at it and I couldn't really work out, especially the front 4 or 5, who was playing where. I think what puzzled me the most was, and it could be due to lack of fitness, is the fact that we played a system or a formation where it would have suited a lone striker who, if you're going to get balls into the box, you need someone who could get on the end of it. But Salverson can do that. We've seen evidence of him doing it. He's done it once for us, but in his highlight reels at Viking, that's what he thrived off. And to see that Yates had started ahead of Salverson, I just thought to myself, well, we know that Yates is just going to be non-existent in this game. And I think when you look at your focal point, that's your best form of defence. It's that age-old saying, isn't the best form of defence is attack. And you're looking at Yates to sort of bring that. It isn't Yates' game, which is a shame. So
he's gone.
Yeah, maybe we've lost Vic. So, Carl, I'll move on to you. What do you think when that lineup was announced around 2:00? What was your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think the trouble is that, I mean, what we want to see is some form of not fight from Eustace, but some form of like just changing the mindset of the players. And obviously, what you want to see from that is a change in formation, a change in style. But as we alluded to, how long he's got to do this, it's not a lot. So then, as I say, from what we saw in the week, he's trying to do his 4-2-3-1, which he's renowned for when he was at Birmingham, when he was at Blackburn. But then what you'd like to also see is probably we said square pegs round holes with Warne, but there was a lot of that in terms of the lineup on Saturday. I think Ken Jackson still seems to be finding his way in. I don't think that's out of choice. I think that's just out of necessity. I think Kenzo seems to be struggling to get in a start, but I just think that, not that he doesn't know where to put him, but I just think that when you're looking at wingers, he's not a winger, and obviously we saw that he was trialing him out there. The obvious thing would be to put him in the 10, and Harness it seems to be having that spot a lot. There's something that he must be seeing in training in Harness, and to be fair, Harness was okay in the training session that we saw, but it's a different it's a different thing when you're trying to actually go game time wise. But yeah, I think it'd be very interesting to see what home formations will be the next big thing, because I think away you just want to try and be solid. If you can nick anything on the break, then go for it. But at home, especially against Blackburn, which will be a big game, which we'll talk about later, I think you need to be positive. And at this point, I put it in a tweet yesterday. I think you mean minimum of 4 points, ideally 6. Otherwise, I think the writing's on the wall.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that, and I think Boro, my question come back in terms of that lineup is where are the goals coming from and how we're going to actually create them. And I think it was obvious. I think our best opportunity was probably the Ebou Adams scissor kick that went over the crossbar. I think it was a nicely worked move from Derby. I believe it came from a corner or a free kick, and then obviously Harness and Elder work it well out wide, which we were trying all game. Good ball in. Forsyth knocked it back down for Adams, and at a bit of an awkward angle he puts over the crossbar. But apart from that, that was probably the only opportunity we created. Jerry Yates got little to no service. Caden Jackson, for me, was poor out wide again. But I think we've seen it all season. We know he's not that player who's going to try and beat his man with either pace or skill. So, like we say, I think he is just out of there. He's out on that pitch in the starting 11 because maybe we've not really got any other players who can play in his position for the prolonged period of time during the game. I think the Harness one is what puzzles me, considering we've all as a fan base probably said that he probably should be more out wide than down the middle. I think we've seen him be more effective out wide, but he still finds himself playing down the middle. And I think for me yesterday, I just thought just lacked in quality. But I think that's probably been the story for the whole team and really the season. But I don't mind John Eustace switching up the team in that he did. I think Tom Barkhuizen's a player I always had them purple patch moments in terms of where he just turned it on. So I can understand him coming into it. But no, I think it's a big game coming up on Saturday. Blackburn at home, coming up against John Eustace, obviously former team. But if we look to what I would feel like is the inevitable, I don't want to be too negative, but if we go down to League One, I know we mentioned this in the chat. I'll come to you, Vic, first about this. There's a number of teams who are in and around that playoffs that were in there when we got in promotion last season. But for me, it's going to be a tougher League One next year. Do you think we can have that bounce back ability, or do you think we're going to be down there for a couple of years?
It's difficult to say. I think the way things are at the minute, even behind the scenes as well, you're looking at sort of a whole restructure of the club's needed. I don't think we'll bounce back if we do go down, just purely because I think League One has sort of improved in terms of some of the teams that are in that league at the minute. Obviously, you've seen the likes of Wrexham. Obviously, Birmingham will come up this year, no doubt. But teams like Stockports are in the playoffs. I mean, there's some pretty decent sides in that division, and I just think that obviously we bounce back within the 2-year time frame. I just think that even if Eustace is the right man, this project is a long-term project, and I think it's no wonder Eustace alludes to it so much in the fact that we've got such a rebuild that needs to happen both on the field and off the field. I think it's going to take a long time to build it back up. So if we do, well, I'm not going to say if, I think it's more of a case of when now. When we do go down, it's going to take a massive rebuild. I think as a club, I just think we need to get the structure right. I just think behind the scenes, we need to sort of bring in more footballing brains. We need some more footballing experience on the board. I just think that this season has been the blueprint to show how not to run a football club when you've got no football intelligence or anything like that behind the scenes. And I think people need to start earning their money. I think the recruitment department need to start earning their money, because they've shown this year that the players that we've signed are not championship quality. It's as simple as that. That's why we're bottom of the table. The sporting intelligence department, they need to earn their stripes as well. Need to show us what we're actually investing in, and if we are making key decisions, they need to be a part of that too. And I just think that David Clowes, as brilliant as he has been, I just think he needs a bit more help in terms of bringing footballing knowledge people around him. I just think it's quite difficult for him, especially with having Stephen Pearce on the board, who he's Marmite, and he's not even Marmite. People just don't like him, full stop. But you need somebody that can sort of really grab it by the horns and really bring this club forward. Now, if we do go down, I think it's a case of rebuilding top to bottom. Hopefully, we can do that within a year or two's time frame. Because once you get in League One, as you've seen the likes of like Charlton and teams like that, if you get stuck there for a few years, you become stagnated. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But again, I just think we need a complete rebuild top to bottom if we do go down. Even if we stay up, I just think we need that rebuild. But we'll be very lucky to stay up at this rate.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think for me, the writing's on the wall after the performances. I think that relegation seems just to be getting closer and closer, and we're almost delaying the inevitable with how many games we've got to go. But Callum, I'll come to you on the flip side. If we stay up, what should Eustace change in that side? I think we know there's going to be a change of style of play, obviously, next season or similar to that. But what areas on the pitch in terms of personnel would you make a change?
Ooh, so I think the 4-2-3-1 is right. I think that is 4-2-3-1/4-3-3. I think it suits the way we've been playing. In terms of when we actually got the results at the start of the season, we played 4-2-3-1. Funnily enough, we didn't play three at the back, and we had players who could actually play to that when. No, it's always before they were being coached, when they were actually had the ability to play football. So what I'd probably do is, I love Ibu Adams. I absolutely love him to bits. Unless he has a solid ball playing CDM with him, I don't see him in a starting 11. You need then two ball playing CDMs for me. I think he is a bulldozer, but the trouble is that his on the ball ability. He can't be that person, so he needs someone drastically, seriously with him, and that's where obviously Ozo came in handy. And at the start of the season, also when Kenzo was in that 10, it was great. But the trouble is that since then we haven't seen him in that 10. We haven't seen anyone, a progressive attacking midfielder who could go forward with the ball and drive through the midfield. Obviously, there's been talks that. Is it Dolan from Blackburn could come in as a winger and stuff? I think wingers are genuinely probably the biggest recruitment drive this summer, because I think
Agreed.
I would get rid of all of them. But I would say I'll turn Wilson into a winger and get another right back in and turn him into a right winger. But I think that is the biggest thing for me. And then. I don't know. You probably centre halves. If you could get in Nat Phillips on a free in League One, you take that. I think Clarkey will go. I don't think he'd stick around in League One. So then you're probably looking at maybe another centre half. I think I saw it in the comments earlier. People asking our opinion of whether like the likes of Kenzo will stick around, and I think we have one shot or 1 year and one season to keep the assets that we've purchased. Your Zetterstrom, your Kenzos, your Langas, and Salversons. I think all of them will stick around at least 1 year, because you can say to them, look, be part of the rebuild, be part of Eustace's full first season, and then we'll bounce back up. But after that, then we've got to start again. So yeah, I think it's tough. It's a tough ask of anyone, and it's a tough ask of Eustace. So we will see how it all plays out. Because I think at the end of the day, I don't envy any manager who's going to take over Derby County at the moment.
Yeah, agreed, really. And I think Dean Young's just put a good comment out of who's going to score goals. I think we forget Jerry Yates is only on loan. Obviously, DeJean Brown's out injured at the moment. I'm sure he's going to come into the fold a lot next season, especially if we're in League One. I think he's more than ready for that position. But I'll come to you, Vic. We've got a couple of players out of contract in the summer, and I wanted to touch upon who do we think will give maybe another contract or an extension, or who wouldn't be offered that. Now, the majority of them are squad players or players who haven't featured really this season. But there's a couple in there who players I think we're going to want to keep hold of, and some which sort of fall in between that of first team players and squad players. So we know Matt Clark was on a short-term contract. He's only here until the end of the season. I think that largely depends on whether we are in the Championship next season. Kamar Roof sort of falling into that bracket of coming in on short term to add something and maybe score a couple of goals. But a big one is Kane Wilson. his contract's up this summer. Tom Barkhazen as well, who's come into the fold a little bit more under Eustace. I think Liam Thompson is a big one as well. His contract's up this summer. Connor Washington, a player who's not featured all this season. Craig Forsyth as well, another one of them squad players, obviously started yesterday and actually had a decent game, I would say. And then also Luthra, the third choice goalkeeper, who's not featured for us, I don't think, this season. But out of them players, who would you want to be seeing given a new deal, Vic?
I think it's absolutely imperative that we sort of tie down Wilson to a contract. I just think out of all the players you've mentioned there, we've got to really start, if we are, whatever division we're in, we've got to start building our team around the quality players that we do have. And I think Wilson is one of those. I just think that, okay, he might not be a right back, but maybe if we can convert him into a right winger, we can probably get the best out of him, because his dribbling ability on the ball is probably the best we've got at the club. So I think we really need to tie him down to a deal. Obviously, I'd love Matt Clark to stay as well. But personally, I think if we drop down to League One, I just don't think he's going to make that step down. He's too good for League One. And I reckon another Championship club will take a punt on him there. Other than that, it's hard to say that I'd like to keep any of the rest of them. Even with Foz, I think it's the age factor for me. I think he's given us 10 solid years at Derby. And I think sometimes you don't want to outstay your welcome too long. I just think that every year he's performed really well to a high standard. I just don't want to give him another year and he has a disaster. That's my only concern with that. It's a bit like Curtis Davis. He had that extra year and he didn't really perform to his level that he could have because we knew the legs had gone. So I think Wilson we need to keep. Obviously, I'd like to keep Matt Clark depending on what division we're in. If we drop down, I don't think so. But if we stay up 100%, he needs to be signed to a new deal. The rest of them, honestly, I'm not really bothered if they stay or not. I just don't see how a lot of them have contributed. The problem is with players like Washington, who hasn't featured all season, do you really want to give him a new deal? Probably not. You're looking at Luthra coming as a third choice now, unless we sell Zetterstrom, which could be a potential if we do go down. I could imagine the Championship clubs be sniffing around for him. Then you might want to consider keeping him. But other than that, I just think there's probably no one else who'd rather keep him. Then it goes back to that whole point of the total rebuild. I just think if we're going to rebuild, we need to do it properly. And if it means getting rid of a lot of the deadwood, let's just do it this summer.
I agree. I think, like we say about the rebuild, I think I'd rather start with a clean slate. I think it's a fair point about Craig Forsyth as well. I think he's been a part of the furniture at Derby for so many years, hasn't he now? And he's put in great performances over so many years. And we've seen him go from that left back who could go forward up the wing to that left back who's more defensive to now that centre back. And I think this season, he put in a good performance yesterday, but I do feel like he's shown his age a little bit, especially at the level that we're playing at. Maybe in League One, he could do a job, but I think once again, he's done a really good job for Derby. And like we said, I don't think we'd want to keep him that extra year where maybe his performance level drops and we don't remember him for how good he has actually been for the club. And I think one that I'd actually offer a contract would be Liam Thompson. I think it's been harsh that he's not featured more for us, if I'm being completely honest, given more starts. I think whenever he has, he's usually put in a good performance. I think Norwich away was a decent performance when he started there. But I think he has been a little bit unfortunate that he's just not been able to break into that side. But then once again, like you say, it's that total rebuild, isn't it? And we're probably going to have to be harsh with one or two of the squad players that we've got. But Callum, any of them players that you keep on different to Vic or the same?
Yeah, I think you made a good point about Thompson. The trouble is, so if you were staying up, you'd go, go on, we'll give you a 2-year deal or something like that, just to see if you can break into the first team. If not, then you can cut your losses. But I think the trouble is with League One, we saw a little bit when we were down there that the physicality aspect is so different. The pitches are completely different. You don't get time on the ball. You basically you've got to have a specialised team to get yourself out of there. And don't get me wrong, certain teams can, or when you're at home, you can play people off the park. But when you go to away, like I know the likes of like Cheltenham, Exeter, those sort of places, it's like you've got to have players who can, like, that's where your Ebus thrive. And Thompson did struggle with the physicality aspect of it, and I think if we go down, I can see him just leaving. It'll be interesting to see where he goes if he does, because I think he's on the ball. I think he's a tidy little player. It's just unfortunately his stature and everything like that, and obviously who he's in there with will be interesting. The trouble is that there's players who aren't out of contracts that I want to get rid of, let alone the guys who are who have got them. I mean Osborne, much as I love him, he's a Derby fan and as a bloke, and he's great. He'd be on the first plane home for me. I think Kane Jackson will be on that plane too. I think Mendes Lang, I don't know. He seems to the back end of this year, he seems to have really fallen off a cliff. And like I said, a lot of it it's hard to tell whether it's ability or if it's just it's confidence. But there's a few players that have still got another year on their contract that I could see Eustace looking at them going, I could get better than you, even in League One. So it'd be very, very interesting. My list is very similar to Vic's and probably yourself, Adam, to be honest.
Yeah. I think it's also who takes them players off our hands after this season. I think some of the performances, the players we've got, obviously haven't been brilliant, and they haven't shown that they have the quality to play in this division. But then again, who in League One or even the Championship would take some of those players off our hands? I think obviously the players who've not performed very well, I think you look at them, they'll probably say they're more like League One quality. But would any club in League One pay a fee for them, or would any club in League One come in on a free? And yeah, so it's probably quite a difficult one where we're fortunate that a lot of players are up out of contracts come the summer. So we know we're going to have a little bit more of a thinner squad going into League One, something to build on. But then also we're probably still going to have some of them players for another year, unless they get loaned out.
Yeah.
Or still in and around the squad. So we could have almost that hangover from the Championship. And I think I spoke numerous times last year, the hangover from League One. And yeah, when are we going to get rid of this? But yeah, looks like we could have it for a little bit longer. And I think we'll look to Saturday now. Blackburn at home, obviously the return of, John Eustace coming up against his former club that he obviously left for to come and manage us. We've got to hope that he can put some belief into these players, especially playing in front of the Pride Park crowd, which have had some really good attendances as well this season as well, and some decent atmospheres considering the form and matches. But Vic, do you think we might see a different edge to us considering Eustace is coming up against his former club?
I'd like to say yes, but the problem is you're looking at the squad and you just can't see it. It's just being honest. I know Blackburn 100% are going to they're going to have a point to prove. They're going to come to Pride Park and then we're going to be like, yep, it's our ex-manager. He's left us for Derby. Let's prove a point. Let's go and get 3, 4, 5-0 if we can. And believe you me, if they get going, we've seen it earlier on in the season, when they attack, they can attack with some force. So I'd like to think that Eustace is doing everything he can to sort of bring up the spirit and trying to keep the lads positive. I just think, again, when we come back to it, it's just the quality isn't there, is it? And if we can't get the setup right, in my opinion, I just think it's going to be another defeat. Blackburn are on the heels of the playoffs. There's quite a bit of an interesting playoff battle going on between anyone from I think it's 5th to maybe 12th. So there's a lot of football to be played there. Hopefully we can catch them on a bad day, but I just think to myself, unless we get a couple of key players back, get this system right, put round pegs in round holes, we might have a chance. It's just we've got to get that first goal, whatever happens on Saturday. If we get that first goal, then we're talking. But the longer the game goes on, it always feels like an inevitability that we're going to concede and end up losing the game 1-0, which has unfortunately happened in the last 2 games and quite a lot this season. So I can't see anything other than defeat, if I'm being honest.
But say you mentioned first goal, I just want a goal, to be honest, mate.
I'd celebrate the shot at this point.
I think at least at Boro away, it was nice to see a couple of shots from outside the box. And I think Adams had one that first half, which took me by surprise and tested the Boro keeper. But yeah, I think a goal and a shot would do very nicely for the confidence. And I think you make a great point. We just have to take the leading games, I think, in this last 11. I think if we go a goal down, we're done, because that's the heads dropping. And yeah, that's it. But like you say, if we can get that early goal, whether it's in the first 30 seconds or it comes in the 90th minute and we win 1-0, I think that's massive for the confidence boosting, but just also for a result, I think, because yeah, I think if I'm being completely honest, it feels like Groundhog Day every weekend. I'm not sure when we're going to get that's next result. But looking to Blackburn, Callum, I'll come to you first. What's your score prediction, and who do you think, if we can score, who do you think's going to score?
Yeah, I mean, Blackburn's going to be interesting. I think the attendance will be very interesting. Also, kind of seeing who's sticking with this team, or are people kind of resided to the inevitable of what people think is going to happen, and just kind of stop coming. I don't know. I think Saturday afternoon will be interesting in terms of, like I said, how many people turn out. But yeah, I think the coaching staff and Eustace will try and get up for this game. It's just whether the players, because as horrible it sounds, the players don't really care. As horrible it sounds that he's going up against his former team, because they just want to, they'll want to get a win and a shot and stuff like that. But yeah, I think if the only hope I see is if Eustace can slip into the Blackburn dressing room and go to his former players and go, come on, do me a solid, you know. Yeah, I'm going to go. I want to say a win, but I just don't. So I'm going to go 1-1. Yeah, I'll go 1-1. I think we'll score, but it won't be any of our lot. It'll be an own goal. And yeah, I think it'll just be another game that we kind of go. We'll make ground on other teams because other teams are going to lose. So there you go. There's a positive. We'll get a draw. They'll lose. That's the positive we're going to get. Vic's life. That's all we're going to do, mate. Yeah. I can't.
You did not hold play Plymouth on Tuesday. We could be 7 points adrift by the time we play on Saturday.
I know. Yeah, I just literally. The trouble is that how long have we said just before you came to me, Adam, that if we just get that first goal, if we just get this, it's just been a season of ifs, and obviously, if they're going to sack one, look what happened. We didn't sack him, and we went 20 odd games without a win. So it's like, you know, this is where we're at now. So we'll wait and see. Vic, what do you think?
God,
yeah,
that's what I think. I just think if we can get the early goal, then I think we'll get another one, and I think we'll win 2-1. I just think that as good as Blackburn are, there's only one person that will probably know that team inside out, and it is John Eustace. So if there's any way to sort of counteract it, we probably got the perfect person in place. But like I said, unless we get that first goal, then it's difficult to see anything beyond the defeat. I just think that the longer the game goes on, especially nowadays, we seem to lose belief, and especially it was telling when Middlesbrough got that goal how the demeanor of all the players, it just they didn't believe they were going to get back into it despite still having a good 15 or so minutes left in the game. That's the difference now, isn't it? Is the fact that where whoever gets that first goal dictates how Derby's game's going to go. So fingers crossed we get. You know what? Let's go for it. We'll go for a 2-1 win. I think we're going to get an early goal and we're going to push on. And this is it. This is the Eustace revolution. And we'll probably still go down, but we'll get 3 points against Blackburn.
Oh my God.
I like the positivity there. I think I'll just agree with you. 2-1 win. Blackburn chuck it in the goal twice for us. Goalkeeper drops it in twice from back passes or corners, whatever. And yeah, we start the Great Escape, and yeah, we'll be touching playoffs come the end of the season. And
have you watched The Great Escape? They needed like tools. We haven't even got a spoon.
No, I think being honest, I had no clue how we were going to play at Boro, what the result was going to be, and I think at this point, I think for me, I just need to see something else from the players. I think they're putting in the effort just a little bit more, whether that's passion or a little bit of quality. Just need to see a little bit more, because I think the fans are there backing them. But I need to see something given back from the players, if I'm being completely honest. There's still 11 games to go. So hopefully we can see that start off on Saturday and have a bit of fight about us come to the end of the season. But I think that's a good place to round this episode off. It's been a tough one after the recent bit of form, no winning 12. But hopefully the next podcast we do on a Sunday, we'll have a win to talk about, or a point, or a goal, or a shot on target at least. So, if you have enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to rate it 5 stars on whatever you're listening on, Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube. You can follow us on all of our social medias as well. We're also still carrying on our run for charity. We're all putting in the kilometres. We're coming into that final stretch, and we're still going, still ticking off the kilometres. But no, hopefully Derby come away with some points next weekend. So it's goodbye from me.
Yeah, try and keep the faith as hard as it is. We'll come out with an episode on Wednesday. I think I'm doing that one, and get a couple of guys on. If you are interested, also just a very quick one. If you are very interested in coming on, drop Ramstalk an email, and we'll try and get you in the community. We built a really good community, and we'll get you on the midweek shows, and we'll go from there. But yeah, goodbye from me.
If we get a shot on target, make sure you celebrate it. Goodbye from me.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time.